Locho sampo pa gyu trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yarngoda belge drolor zambe tse parche panden lame shabla solvade Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munishasa Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munish Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Munisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kudanda Gelu Pakyuke Sundanda Tudanda Geyi Tüyerme Çıktı Çingelo Makyuke Kudanda Gelu Makyuke Sundanda Gena Makyuke Tugdanda Geyi Tüyerme Çıktı Çingelo Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Svoha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Svoha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Svoha Sangye Chedan Tsogi Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparish Sangye Chedan Tsogi Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparish Sangye Chedan Tsogi Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapso Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Ki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparasho Nel Buddha, nel Dharma e nel Sangha Illuminazione. Con la pratica della generosità e delle altre perfezioni, possa io ottenere lo stato di Buddha per il beneficio di tutti gli esseri senzienti. Namo Lhaye Ke Dan Rudan Jike Rudanami Ke Nam Dan Ruakun Ke Ranam Che Tsampa Tam Che Ke Tu Dagi Chuten To. Buonasera.
Good evening.
Una delle cose
One of the things on which sometimes I've reflected that I would like to take as a starting point for today is the fact that we live in a cyclical reality, even if often we have a linear vision. We have a vision of as if it were like a line where one day after the other, week after the other, we walk on and and life goes by in that with relationships and so on. And if we observe a little bit more carefully, we can see that in our lives, actually, there are periods that repeat themselves like cycles that we live. We have more obvious cycles, such as the cycles of every day, more like monthly cycles, yearly cycles, and different types. And it's interesting to be able to observe and recognize the cycles in which we live in, because let's imagine this object that is on balance. So there are three fundamental points. There are the two extremities, and then there is like a central point. On one extremity we have environment, on the other extremity we have the body, and then we have the central point that is our mental state, our emotions. If something happens on one extremity, that is the environment, I'm talking about not only the environment, meaning nature, but also the environment as society, as people that live in, and the context in which we find ourselves. How much are we influenced by the context in which we find ourselves? Our internal state of balance. A lot. Okay, so when something happens in the environment, then balance is lost. On the other extremity, we have the body. When the body is well, that helps us to feel well and to be in balance. And when the body is not well, then it's difficult for one to maintain a state of mental balance, of well-being, of satisfaction, of peace, of just feeling well when the body is not well. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult. And if we see this, if we're able to see this, then somehow we try to keep the balance in life, trying to create ideal situations external. So trying to make it so that the environment is favorable. So not only from the point of view, as I said before, from the environment itself, in the sense that if the environment is cold, then we try to protect ourselves, but also to be able to survive in a comfortable way, and to have people around ourselves with situations that are also favorable. So we try to create constantly a favorable environment. This is a challenge, and sometimes we are able, sometimes not. And then we have the body part that is taking care of health and so on. And what happens though is that as much as I am able to keep the two extremities on balance, if the central point is not flexible in adapting to the movements, the subtle movements that happen, and it's not fixed well, this central pin, then it's really easy to lose this balance. This is like when, for example, the environment is quite fine, the body is quite fine, but the mind is not well. So in these cases, I lose the balance. It's like being in a beautiful environment with beautiful people, with a healthy body, but then with a sick mind. It's like
quello che succede che cos'è?
so what happens is
È proprio di quello di cui parlavo.
that's just what I was talking about before. We can call like so when the environment is fine, the body is fine, but at the same time, the mind is sick. It's just like being in heaven, but living in hell. On the other side, when a person has a balanced mind, and so there is a flexibility, that even if there are some movements, it's always able to maintain the balance. It's maybe going a little bit lower, but it's never collapsing. In that case, it's like being in hell, but living as if it was heaven. And so, in front of this, all of this just to say that we are influenced by the body, we are influenced by the environment in which we find ourselves, and one of our own keys is to be able to understand the processes in which we find ourselves, to be able to find the best way to relate with those moments. So, physically, our body has a cyclical reality. There are some phases related to every cycle, every month. I am convinced that often when we talk about hormonal cycles related to time, we are more connected to women, because also we say, the women have cycles. It's not that men don't have it. I'm really convinced, and I have some people that I know, men, and okay, you can say just let him be. Yes, he's in the cycle, so it's not the moment. One of the main differences is that in the woman you have a much more evident physical manifestation, so it's easier to understand what's going on. The other day I was telling about my mother that was studying this aspect of hormonal cycles, and she saw that men has a testosterone cycle that lasts like a few minutes, like 13 minutes. And she, at the time, was married to this Italian man, and he was a person, he really liked to swear in the car. And being in the car with him was a perfect lesson to how to swear. And so my mother was like, okay, he is swearing, and then she would count the minutes. And then, after like 13 minutes, and then she looked at me, he's about to swear. And then he did it, and it was like a perfect clock. This is to say what? That, like you feel something inside, and when we feel something inside, do we recognize that it comes from inside, or we try to find the guilty outside? We look for the guilty outside. So if I'm driving and at a certain point I feel nervous, then it's someone's fault. That guy that passed me, the other one is too slow, the other one is too fast, whatever. I open and close a parenthesis. The way to help to make it so that it will decrease the quantity of swearing in the car, we asked him, it's quite annoying, we told him. It's not for the swearing itself, but to be there with someone that it's angry, and then we don't need to repeat it here. But then it's quite annoying. But he said, I'm not upset with you. And I said, okay. So it was like in the 96, 97, there were no emails at the time. Like those years, yeah. And at a certain point, I had the idea with my mother, okay, let's do the following. I took paper when it was swearing. Okay, can you repeat it? Why? Because I want to learn them. I'm making like a compilation for all the swearing. Then I will send a very long fax in the office, and I will say it's not for you. Like but then I would just send it to the office. No, don't do it, but I don't have it with you. I'm just sending it to the office. And so, just to joke here we kind of decrease this kind of habit, at least when I was there. So what happens is that when we feel something inside, our tendency is to want to understand what we feel inside looking at the world outside. And this, very often, we live our internal reality as if it was the result of something that is going on outside. So if I'm feeling this, it's because something has happened. One of the experiences that I had that kind of hit me, it was when I was in India going to Kathmandu. From Calcutta, I took a flight to Kathmandu, and in the flight change, I also had to change terminal, so from the domestic to the international terminal. And at the time, there were kind of doing some work in the airport, and it was very chaotic. And then you go to go through the luggage, with the luggage to the parking, it was full of holes. And I remember this moment where I didn't have much time, I didn't know whether I would miss the flight or not, and it was very hot in Calcutta. And I remember I was hearing like rain noise, but the sky was blue and it was really hot. It was the asphalt that was kind of melting with the cars rolling. That noise. So I was in the midst of this situation with many luggages, and the cart was kind of getting stuck in the holes, and so I didn't really know where I was supposed to go. And this is just to say, it wasn't the most beautiful situation. And as I was there, I remember very clearly, I get like a rush of joy, like a crazy rush of joy. I have this really crazy joy that I feel like singing, dancing, like coming from inside. And I ask myself, why? I didn't have anything inside of me so that I could say this is the reason. It's not because I was going to travel for a particularly joyous reason or because something had happened, or there wasn't any particular reason that I could identify in that moment. And so that made me reflect a lot to say what happens inside of us, not necessarily, or actually almost never, is a direct result of what is happening outside us, around us. And often also it's the opposite. So we have like we have internal experiences which are fruits of an infinity of things, and then we live what is outside through the filter of what we have inside. So our physical state, for example, I think it has already happened to everyone to wake up in the morning a bit like crooked and to see everything kind of wrong. And it comes to my mind a person that I know that I haven't seen this scene for a while, but in the past there were some moments where this woman would wake up and she would be very nervous, and so she will go to the people that she will meet, and then she will say, be careful because today I feel like really getting into a fight, so don't say too many things. And that was true. And what does this mean? Okay, I wake up and I feel like an internal tension, and then I end up projecting it on something. And so there are some days where we wake up and we feel well, other days we wake up and we have a certain tension, we don't really feel like it, other days where we have more like creativity, other days with less creativity. We are not always the same. And also inside, just one day, like not a long while ago, a person that I know observed that at 3 in the afternoon he will get angry, like a clock. He will get nervous at that time. And if you go and look, what happens is actually also our body during every day as cycles of the organs, which are directly connected to emotions. I don't know much about this, but when it's the time of the liver or whatever else, then you get anger or sadness, or there is a connection also in that. So it's not like random that like a 3 in the afternoon you feel in a certain way. What I want to say is that what happens inside of us is a tool through which we go and live the world that surrounds us. And often we don't have much awareness of the cycles in which we find ourselves. I don't know. We have, for example, the fact that simply the times of the year, like winter, summer, summer, autumn, spring, do they have an influence on us or not? We have an awareness of this in which we go and act, okay, oh, this is the winter, and so I have to be more careful. It's a moment more reflection, introspection. Then there's the spring, and then after introspection, you kind of bring outside and you create more. But then I have to do some depuration of the liver. Do we think about all these things? People do a little bit more, people will do less, but more and more we live in this idea that we always live in the same way. So we have this tendency that it doesn't matter whether outside there is the sun or not, we can do the same things because we have artificial light. It seems nice to eat the mango in winter in Italy. Mango is nice, but mango is a food that has a characteristic, to make an example, that makes the body more cold. The food have like kind of nature that are cold and hot, and mango is strongly of cold nature, so it's very good if you're in Brazil, if you are in India, in Africa, the places where mango grows in summer. It's the right time to eat the fruit. It's good for you. But if you go and eat the mango in winter in Italy, it's not very good. I eat mango once in a while, it's not the end of the world, but it doesn't help to balance. And this reminds me, was once there was here at the Kunpen in the hall where there is now a reception, it was Lama Lawan, and there is a picture of him here. Many of you have met him. He was a healer, a Tibetan healer, wonderful person. He was here in Milan for many years, and he was meeting patients and healing them. And once they came to interview him, and I remember very well this girl, very elegant, tall, skinny, that was kind of interviewing him. It was for a magazine, I don't remember, it was Donna Moderna. And she was interviewing him about Tibetan medicine, and at a certain point he asks Lama Lawan, this Tibetan master, a kind of old school Tibetan monk, and she asks him, what are the main diseases that you've seen in the West? And he had seen a lot of people. Look, the main problem that I see is that people don't sleep. The people are too agitated, too much anxiety, too many thoughts, they don't sleep well, so we have insomnia, and so on. This is the main problem, that in Tibetan medicine means the wind element that is too high. Why there are these problems? Well, simple, too much salad in the evening, at dinner. The evening is the time where you're supposed to eat something more heavy. Like, look, the soup of the cow tail is very good. And he also explained there where to get it. There is the butcher here that that sells it and it's good. And she was saying, but the cholesterol? No, look, you need to eat something heavy in the night because that makes you sleep well. Full point, because the salad, which is very light in a dinner, because in the evening also it's when the thoughts kind of increase, and so the wind that is related to the light food also makes the wind increase, and the article actually never came out eventually. So what happens is that if we don't have an awareness of the moment in which we find ourselves and how I have to adapt to that moment and to the place where I am in, because at the end it's just about trying to create balance. Winter is coming, what is the best way to live winter? Summer is coming, spring, whatever. There is, yes, a part of how to eat, but also a kind of inner behavior. What energy is it bringing in that season? There are many different attitudes, and this is an example that very often we are not connected to the cyclical rhythms of nature, of which I don't know if we realize we are part of. It's like when we see an animal, like the dog, the cat, or whatever, that have some behaviors that we first believe to be kind of human. I don't know, like the dog that is jealous. How cute he is jealous. Or like behaviors that... But actually, it's not that the dog it's like a human. We are also animals. And we have things that we share. From my point of view. So what happens is that we have cycles. We are part of nature. Inevitably, we are part of nature. And it's important for us to realize in which phase I'm in on the basis, and on the basis of that, how I should act. Because also as a species, more and more we have gone to a more conceptual phase and less instinctive. Me, with my dogs, I was very impressed by how many things the dog knows by instinct, that is then called the ancestral memory. Without having to tell the dog anything, the dog knows to do a lot of things. Like she has puppies and she already knows how to take care of them. There wasn't like the grandma to tell her, oh look, you have to do this and this. And they live through that instinct. And when I saw these things, I asked myself, but we are also animals. We also have our own instincts. But very, very often we don't let ourselves to follow these instincts because we are taken away by the rationality and we want to understand, we want to follow the logic, which has a beautiful aspect, but also the instinct is very powerful. And in this wanting to understand, what happens is that we have created some structures, conceptual structures, in order for us to be able to understand some things that we can also understand through instinct, but we don't have that capacity so much, partly. So, for example, to recognize the processes of diseases, to recognize what is good to eat, what behavior to have in a certain phase of the year, to understand our own internal cycles of the body, are things that the instinct is there, but we are not so much able to listen to it. And so we have created some tools to be able to understand these things. And the interesting thing is that we managed to maintain the tools, but somehow to use them for a superficial reason and to lose the real function of them. I explain. What is a calendar? The clock, to start with. we think that the clock is a tool to measure and to keep track of time, right? But time for which we use the clock is like the absolute time. Okay, what time is it? And this absolute time that we feel, that we follow, it was invented by Newton. Also, from a physical point of view, it's just not there. There is specific time of everything, but the first clocks were born to be a representation of the natural process of nature. That is, the earth is revolving around itself, and that those are the 24 hours. The calendar is there to make you able to understand where is earth in relation to the sun. That is necessary. The weeks are made by 7 days because the moon needs 28 days to revolve around Earth, and so it needs to be divided in 4 phases. That's why we have the weeks that in total make 28. Because if we have a month that is made of 30, then why weeks can't be of 10? It would be easier. Because our system of calendar helps us to realize in which phase of the cycles we find ourselves. Tibetan, for example, they use a lunisolar system, and one of the few used today in which in the same calendar you have the representation of both the moon cycles and the sun cycles. So when you look at the Tibetan calendar, in the blink of an eye, you know in which phase they find themselves. So, and every 15 day, then it's the full moon. And on the basis of this, you're able to understand according to the number of the day in which lunar phase you find yourself. And in a long time, we have created these very beautiful systems of representation, because calendars are able to represent the natural processes of the planets and the sun in a very complete way. And these calendars, to be more complete, are these calendars where not only you see where are the moon and the sun, but also where is Mars, where is Uranus, or all the other planets. But during years we have seen that two main cycles that influence us are the sun and the moon. And seeing this, starting with simple things like, for example, agriculture, there we see that there are cycles. There is the time to seed, then the time to harvest, the time to prepare the ground, and according to what is going on outside, I have to decide. It's not that I can always seed in the same day every year. There are some cycles in nature. So if we talk like with wise farmers, then we know that in 1 year they have maybe seeded earlier, so other years later. So what happens is that the calendars are not there to take appointments. Also, but that's not the real function. The calendars are there to make us understand that we live inside of a cycle that is much bigger of us, of which we are part and from which we are influenced. And so the question that I ask myself is, what is the best way that I can act to use at the best the influence that I have at that moment? The example that I made before is winter is coming. Winter is a time where there is less light. Naturally, one is more at home. It's more cold. One is more like And it's a very good time to reflect, to kind of to be with close people and to be more kind of recollected. That's something that we all need. And then there is this time of spring, and that's a time where we go out and we take the experience that we lived in winter and to take it to the world. And that experience also has like a peak, and then slowly it's going down and it's increasing gradually to then come to winter again. And we all as human beings really need this process of activity and rest on every level. A little while ago I was hearing a writer talking, and he was saying, a very important writer, contemporary, and he was saying, what worries me of the world of today, in particular from the political elite, and also in the economical field, and all these people, very successful people, powerful people with a lot of money. I deal with many of these people, and I met and had meetings with very important figures, like prime ministers or very rich people, great entrepreneurs, and they are always on a rush. They never have time. And so you're always running, even also because we created some artificial tools to do our own jobs. Okay, so with technology we developed some tools that are able to work for us. The problem is that these tools don't need to rest, don't need cycles like we do, and so we then need to live on their rhythms. And so, for example, who works with investments, they are like 24/7. Something is happening right now, and so you have to be careful, because as you're going to sleep, there is like maybe stocks that are falling down, and it's like continuous. And it happens that more and more we run because we have to follow the time of what maybe the algorithms are doing, or and so what happens is that he was saying, what worries me is that all these people that are guiding us on many levels are not able to live in a healthy way, following the cyclical periods, because we all need sleep well in order to have good ideas. So when you don't have those times where you're not really doing anything, then you can't be really creative, you're not really able to learn, you're kind of living from what you've learned before, from when you didn't have like time, and you were, they were able to study and to play. So when we are in this phase where we're constantly active, we are not creating anything new anymore. We are just living on the income of what we learned in other moment. Comes to my mind, for example, a time many years ago, there was like an app on the iPad for like speed reading, and also for this skill of comprehension of reading, and started to play with that. And it had a very nice feature, that is, after like certain amount of minutes to use by using it, you were forced by the app to not use it for at least 45 minutes. Because in order to assimilate the things that you learned, you needed a time where you weren't doing it, where ideally you were doing nothing, to allow yourself to assimilate things that you learned. And this is necessary. The experiences that we live through the day, we must have like a good night of sleep to be able to elaborate them, to process them. We need to be able to sleep well. Once I heard someone saying, if we wouldn't dream, we would die very quickly, Because when we are sleeping, it's a moment where the brain is reprocessing many things that it lived, that for information that is there, and it's a very important part for the level of sanity of the brain, dreaming. So it's very important to dream, even if one doesn't remember. I never dream. That's not true. Like if you don't dream, then you die, they said. So we need to reprocess that, and sleeping is very important because we need to be able to elaborate things that happen through life. And so, as there is the phase of day and night, as there is the morning and the sunset, and which are also very important moments, there are the different phases during the moon, the month. So you have full moon, new moon, and it is said that if we want to start something new, it's useful to do that when the energy around us is also of growing. So when you want to learn to start something new, then you should do it with the growing moon, crescent moon. And if it's a time that you're about to close something, then it's best to do it when you're going from the full moon to the new moon. This is an example that is made. But one of the things of understanding cycles is first seeing what is the influence that we receive, because when we see a bit better my influences, then I know better how to react, interact. Comes to my mind a friend of mine in Brazil that is she's a lawyer, and she has always been like a woman in career, very active, very skillful, and she was working in with lawyers, with a lot of work, and she had some periods where she would get like very nervous and aggressive, and sometimes her boss, which was like a Japanese, very balanced man, and he would come next to her, and then he wouldn't say anything to her, and he would just leave like a chocolate on her desk. That would often be when she was in a premenstrual phase. And when she would see the chocolate on the desk, she would understand, okay, I exaggerated, and it helped her to reflect. And then she would see that there were like a particular tension, and according to the context, she would throw that on a certain thing or the other thing. If I wake up in the morning and I realize that there is a moment where I'm sad, that has already happened to me, like to have some days where you have like a certain sadness, you have like a low energy, and I realize that, and I say, okay, I feel like that. I am aware of that, so I am careful to not project that sad feeling on things around me, because I will look for the reason for which I am sad. Then at the end I will blame a certain person, I will blame my relationship, the job, the parents, the children, whatever. Because it's obvious that there are some things that we don't like in our lives, or not. And so when I'm sad, it must be because of that. And sometimes we put ourselves against something where it's not the real problem. I'm not saying that things can't be solved, that we don't like them, or that we don't want to change them. That's something else. But when I recognize that I have an internal state that is more like a moment of introspection, that I have a bit more sadness, and it can be for many different reasons. What I've learned with myself is that whether I wait for a bit until the reason for which I have the sadness manifests itself clearly, and at that point I face it, or I just wait because that's a cyclical phase that passes by. But I try to not make a mess in the middle of that, because if I project in the world on the world around me things, then there is the possibility of creating new conflicts, and then I maybe don't feel like I did, but there is the conflict that I need to manage. And so this is to remember ourselves that we are not always linear and always the same. We are also cyclical. There are moments where we feel more up, moments more down, and this is normality. Because also there is an attitude that makes me smile, even though it's not very nice. When I see someone that it's like not feeling well and is saying, but I can't always live like that. No, obviously you can't always live like that. A bit joking, I would say, don't worry. This problem that you have, even uh, maybe it gets worse or it gets better, but it's not staying like that. But the reality is that never in life one situation is created and stays always the same. But very often I've heard this. I can't spend the whole life like this. And then when there is a good time, one wants the whole life to be like that. But they are both not going to happen. And it's also part of our own balance to have moments of creation, moments of introspection, and we must welcome this. But for many reasons, and that we now don't need to go and analyze, we have a lifestyle where we have an expectation that we somehow need to be always the same, to be always with the same, being able to always be productive and to always have the same mood. I have this feeling that in our way of living life and the expectations that we have on ourselves and on the others, these don't take into consideration the cycles of life. But the cycles are there and they influence us. So, an advice, let's use these tools that were invented a long time ago, coming from Mesopotamia. There are calendars. For how long have we been dividing the month in 4 weeks that are made out of 7? That strange is the day of Mars and of Jupiter. It was not like something that worked for marketing, so those names were used. There is a reason for that. For how long have we been having those systems? So we talk about at least 6,000 years. And it's interesting that those are the same systems more or less all over the world. The systems are used, and it's a beautiful representation of cycles. So one point that I wanted to bring today is to let's give ourselves a bit more space to understand the cycles in which we find ourselves. Inside of the month, inside of the year, there is a tool for this that it's also nice, and often I've seen this tool being used for women, but I think it's very useful also for men, because we are all influenced by cycles of nature. Our bodies adapt much more than we think. How much water do we have in the body? A lot. There is, we say 80%, 70%, depends on how much you drink, I don't know. But the point is that we have a lot of water. Moon does it have an influence on water or not? You can just see the tides, or whoever understands a bit about plants, you knows that you should follow where the moon is to cut or whatever. So there is an emotional part, a part of our whole system that is influenced. And so it's important to understand this, and there is a way that I invite you to try out that it's, how can I say, very analytical, that it doesn't depend on what the others say, but it gives like a path to observe one's own cycles. So you make a circle, then you do 28, you draw 28 spikes, which are the days of the lunar phase. Then you mark the full moon, the new moon, and day after day inside of this, you can also make other circles, and each one of them represents a different aspect, how you feel physically, whether that day you're nervous or not, whether that day maybe you have like attachment or not, 1,000 things that you can look for. Whether you're like a person more inclined to argue that day, you see the parameters that you want to observe for yourself, and each day you see how did that work. Maybe also with a color, you know that a certain cycle is about the body and they use like some specific color. A simple thing without getting into many variables. No, it's just simple. Then who wants to be complicated, you can be, but it's very simple. One day after the other, when the month ends, you will see that thing to be colored, and there is another month and another month, and bit by bit you can see that there are some aspects that are repeating themselves. So you can find the patterns, the schemes of repetition that are there, and it's interesting. Oh, look, in this period, every 10 days I feel like this. That thing is repeating itself like that. Oh, look, when there is the moon like that, and it's like the mystical thing, the power of the moon. We are made of cycles, and also the external cycles help ourselves to see our internal cycles, and so to have this point of reference and to see it, to observe it a bit better. Okay, there are moments where I have a bit more joy, moments where I have more sadness, moments where I get more angry.
Più riusciamo a vedere questi cicli,
the more we're able to see these cycles, the more we can adapt to them. Not to try to block them, but we must use them for our own favor. Then one can also get into more details and look at the times of a day. Then here we are talking about much more detailed work. Just by starting with this already helps a lot. And another important aspect of cycles is the fact that cycles help us, the awareness of cycles help us to kind of review what we have done. And we have a main cycle that we all kind of follow, that it's like 20 months and a year. So at the end of the year there is a tendency of revisiting what happened during the year, and often we do this maybe also in like the news of the year, what has happened. But the reality is that by having a moment where you say, okay, a certain cycle is finished, a new cycle is starting, the idea of starting a new cycle helps us to give ourselves that space to check, okay, what have I done, and what do I want to do, where do I want to go? Because this is very important. I reflected a lot about this for two reasons. One is that since when I was a kid, I never understood the why of the New Year. I remember the scenes of the New Year's Eve where everyone were partying, and I wouldn't understand whether I was a fool or they were a fool. I don't understand. Here there is something wrong. Nothing against partying, but why midnight? Why does it change something? I never really understood that. I still don't understand that, but that's my own problem. But so when Lama Gangchen told me to study Tibetan astrological, the reality is that I didn't want to do that, and so he repeated it 5 times, and really was insisting. Look, it would be nice to study some astrology. In my mind, I had to study. I was studying the correct view of reality, the things of philosophy that I liked a lot. Astrology, maybe tomorrow. It's one day. It's not for me. But since he repeated it many times, in order to find like a smart answer, I said, yes, Rinpoche, okay, fine, I do it. But how much do I need to understand? What is like the minimum? so I can do it, and I go on with other things. And I thought, and he said, no, what you have to do is, okay, you need to be able to take the Tibetan calendar, which is rather complex, and to look at it and to be able to interpret it. Okay. I go to the brother of Lama Gangchen in Tibet and I asked him, can you teach me? Yes, okay. You came, come here like 2 hours for one day and I explain you and then it's on. Because there are some books where you go and check like the words that you need to use, but there are many numbers. And these numbers, okay, no, for the numbers you need to ask an astrologist. I always liked math and technical things. Oh, interesting, these numbers. And the day after this astrologist comes and he starts to explain, look, these numbers represent the position of the moon, of the sun, and so on. And at a certain point, he tells me the story of his teacher of astrology that had invented the system to translate the ancient way of doing Tibetan calculations that nowadays still a little bit used. There is a way to make calculations where we don't use decimals. There are no decimals, but there is just like integers. And being there, not no paper in Tibet because it was very expensive. How do we do calculations? Tibetan had like a thing made of sand where you have like a sort of wood stick where you will write the numbers on it, and after that, when you were done, you would just kind of empty it. And in order to do complex calculations, to calculate Tibetan calendar for a year, for a good astrologist, you needed 3 months of work, full time. And so once a year you had like these very respectful calendars coming out. And so he said, look, my master of astrology had a request from the Panchen Lama that said, in order for the Tibetan culture to not get lost in time, it needs to be adapted to modern times and to the necessities of modern times. So we need to be able to make astrological calculations with calculators and with computers, and this was in the 70s. And he managed for many years to transform the system of calculation with no decimals by using decimals, and so to also use like calculators with at least 12 digits. And so his dream was to be able to do it with a computer, but he never managed. And so I said, I do it. If you can make calculations with the calculators, then you can do it also with Excel. And there I put myself in a trouble, and I spent 2 years, 4 months every year to build this Excel spreadsheet that is infinitely big to make all the calculations. And now I made this system that in order to make the calculations for a year, instead of taking it 3 months, then you just write in the Excel and then instantly get the result. And so by studying this, I started to have some interest in understanding the cycles. Okay, Tibetans already have like 3 New Year's Eves. There is the New Year Eve, that is formally the beginning of the year. Then you have the astrological New Year's Eve. Then you have the New Year according to the moon or to the sun. Depends on what cycle we are talking about. And this already made me reflect a lot. And so I started seeing more sense in the new year. But the main point is to be able to understand, okay, a new cycle is starting, the old cycle is ending. And the moment in which I reflected the most on this was when I saw this system of calendar, which I studied a bit to figure out how to convert the dates of the Tibetan calendar to the Western calendar. I managed eventually, but it was quite difficult. And I studied the system of calendar, I don't know, the Julian calendar.
Julian calendar. È un calendario.
It's a calendar that works like you have the starting day, that is zero, and day after day you sum it, and the hours are with the decimals. And it's the same in every part of the world, so you don't have like you don't have months, you don't have weeks. One day after the other, you go on some the days. So I don't know. Maybe we have come like I don't know what 1,000-year day we are in, but and this doesn't have months. It's just like days, and the hours are decimals. This is a system that allows to use it as a point of reference for any other calendar, and this is used for scientific purposes. And I started to imagine how life would be if I used that calendar. Question: when do you pay taxes? Because there is no cycle of the year. How do you make studies? There is no passing from one year to the other. When do we see each other? And if we go and check, we live very much influenced by these cycles. There is the cycle of the month, the cycle of the year. The cycle of the month is about the moon, and it comes from the moon that revolves around the earth. And the cycle of the year is the time for the earth to revolve around the sun. We are influenced by the cycles, so our choices, our society is structured. And in front of this, the question that comes to me is, how can I use this to my service? One of the things is that a cycle is ending. What have I done? When a cycle is ending is a fundamental time for us to go and revisit what we have done. And to revisit what we have done is very important for two reasons. One, because we must revisit the bad things, and to review also the good things. And by reviewing the bad things, we shouldn't hate ourselves. Oh, look what have I done in January. We don't need to blame ourselves to look at all the stupid things. But if I've done things that didn't go very well, then it's good to say, okay, next year I'm not going to repeat them. That thing didn't work, so I must be careful. And if we are able to see the things also not just from one year to the other, but also from 1 week to the other, that would really be better. But to allow ourselves to look back and say, okay, what have I done last year? Also to train memory and to go a bit backwards, and to review things, our choices, our emotions, how did they manifest themselves. Ah, look, it was a period, those months, yes, I was a bit sad. What have I done? How did I react to that? What has happened? To observe our own lives and to have a moment to go back a bit. And the things that we think that didn't go very well are an opportunity to say, I don't want to repeat that. So if I find myself in a situation like that again, I shouldn't do that again, because that didn't work. So be like redirecting ourselves, and ideally we should do this every day, but at least once a month, or at least once a year, but not like the 31 that start like now. Also from the beginning of December, let's start to prepare ourselves for this passage of the year, and to go over and review ourselves. And we have different tools, maybe like pictures or social media. We'll have everything there, or points of reference to go and revisit what has happened during the year. And things that we see that didn't go well, we say, okay, I'm sorry that I did this, but have I learned something? Yes, no, at least that I don't want to repeat that. And on the other side, there is something else that often is not said, but is very important, to revisit the year and to celebrate the beautiful things. Because the thing that I never understood, what is there to celebrate that the year is finished? Why do we celebrate it? I don't know, you tell me. What is there to celebrate that a year is finished and a new one is starting? I have always had difficulty with that. It seems more like just an opportunity to party rather than to celebrate actually something. But even though these celebrations start from that's the period where the days start to get the days start to get longer, so like the year is starting to grow again. And so the first day that we're able to see that the days are starting to get longer, it's the 25th of December. It's a day when the sun starts to grow again. I don't know why the year is not starting in the 25th, but there are some days extra. But it's anyway the time where the days are starting to grow again and the sun is coming back again, and in a culture that lived without culture, that's fundamental. Now we have centralized heating and light and this and that. We don't realize so much, but it had a function. And celebrating for us has another function, which is to see the beautiful things that have been there and to remember them. And with celebration of those beautiful things, we go and fixate those things in our own memory. Because we live much of our own lives in the past, and often we go back to the past. We go and revisit things, and what happens is often that we have the tendency to generalize an experience on the last part of that experience. So, if we have years in which we do many things together, and in the last period we argue a lot, the tendency is to say, what a ugly, bad relationship. And I go and generalize that relationship on the last period. The more right thing would be to say the last months didn't go well, but the others went well. The trivial aspect is like maybe go to the restaurant. The food is nice, the conversation is nice, and at the moment of paying the bill, we argue. How did the lunch go? Maybe the lunch went well, but the ending didn't go well. So our tendency is to generalize that it didn't go well, and to prevent ourselves from this to happen. If we rejoice for the beautiful things that happened, every time that we celebrate them, then we go and kind of fixate that thing in our memory. And then there is another aspect. When we remember something positive, then also our body reacts as if we relive it.
Il corpo reagisce come se fossimo davanti a quella cosa bella.
So from a chemical point of view, our body reacts to that.
Più abbiamo luoghi in cui tornare per rigenerare quello. E poi c'è un altro punto ancora, per cui secondo me è importante.
And then also there is another point for which, according to me, is important, because the more we grow with age, the likelihood of losing memory increases. I always remember this lady that died a few years ago. She died like 102 years, and in the last years she had Alzheimer, and she had like a memory of 15 minutes, but she got stuck in the memory of a very beautiful time of her life. So she was always happy. You go and meet her, beautiful, she would always be joyous. She did like her last 15 years of her year, like that, of her life, like that.
Passava 15 minuti? Ma tu chi sei? Buongiorno, benvenuto.
So going to meet her would always be like, after 15 minutes, okay, you're playing cards after 15 minutes, okay, what are we doing? Okay, let's start again. And there was like this loop in every 15 minutes, but she was stuck in a period of her life with beautiful memories. And when I saw this, I say to myself, I can't assure myself that at certain point I don't lose my memory. How can I assure myself that at least I increase the likelihood of being stuck in a beautiful time of my life? To live the beautiful times, but also to fixate them in my memory. Because when I live something, a year finishes, a year ends, and I go and fixate the bad things, then after they kind of vanish in the memory and it's difficult to find them back. And we see this when there is like a time of conflict with someone. It's hard to remember the good things.
E io ho visto questo tante volte.
And I've seen this a lot, like when someone is not well and it's difficult to go and find back the things that have happened again. But it's important because when we connect with the beautiful things, that already helps to have a better perspective of the future also. It was this doctor, he was a psychiatrist in which who worked a lot of with couples, and he said that okay, usually when there are like wife and husband that come to him to do a therapy, then it must be not the most beautiful time for the couple. And what did he used to do to make it so that you would ask them, okay, can you tell me how have you met each other? Usually it's a good moment. Maybe not for everyone, but usually. So you will use that hook. Okay, if you
Su questo lui vedeva che cominciavano
on the basis of this, we see that they will start telling a story, and so in order to tell a story, we have to kind of recollect. And when we talk about a good memory, physically, oxytocin increases, we feel good, our body reacts, and that state of well-being makes us more relaxed in the present. It makes us see with more possibility also the future. And so to remember, recollect good things is very important, but in order to do that, we must be able to fixate those things in the memory, and one of the things is to celebrate, which doesn't necessarily mean to party, but mostly to remember how beautiful that was there, how beautiful that I had that experience, that I didn't react like that, or that I learned that thing, that I had that moment together, to remember the good things and to thank for them, to celebrate in any way the beautiful things that we live.
Fissare quelle nella nostra memoria.
Because if we do this from time to time, we fixate them in the memory, and then we have much more resources to regenerate those states again, and places where we can go back to in the memory to feel that state again. Because it's not possible to have a positive perspective of the future when we can't live well the present and we have a bad relationship with the past. Problems are there for everyone, but also good things. So problems, difficulties, we need to see them in order to not repeat stupid things, without feeling guilty, but welcoming ourselves, as we said last week. But it becomes very important to celebrate, and so I invite you to think what are the good things that you want to celebrate this year. At the end of the year, what are the good things that you have to celebrate? Friendships, experiences, also difficult things, but that allowed you a certain growth. It comes to my mind like the image of physiotherapy, like the path of starting to walk again after a surgery to the knee. I have never done it, but I know that I've seen people who have done it, and I know that it's like a victory every centimeter that you walk. And when you walk back, and when you look back and you see maybe like 12 months ago I wasn't able to walk, And now I walk again and I say, how beautiful that I can do it. And so I go and celebrate it. So also the difficult things that I face, but that's on which I had a victory. And so we're now at the end of a cycle, and we can celebrate also these things, because otherwise we say, I wish you a good year. What does it mean? I wish you a good day, a good week. Otherwise, a year, it doesn't come. But we must direction ourselves. We must have the reins of our own life in our hands in order to give ourselves the right direction. And when I think, okay, to a new year, also because time goes by fast, I don't know what is your perception, but to me, 2024 went by, flied by, and I already have the feeling that the 2025 has almost already finished, because recently I did a calendar for the agenda for the 2025, and there is almost no space for things, and so yes, life goes by quite fast, and this is an experience that we all have. And what I say to myself is, one, when I think about people of my past, of the past that had much less tools to do things quickly. Yeah, in order to travel, it would take longer. In order to communicate, in order to do many things, it would take much longer than today. But the interesting thing is that people, from the subjective point of view, had the feeling of having more time. And this is interesting to observe, to reflect at least. I've heard an interesting sentence that said, the problem is not to do things quickly, but to be in a hurry. To be in a hurry, in a rush, it's a problem because it means that I have no time. To do things quickly is not a problem. We are always, often, in a rush, running from one thing to the other. And so there is this speed that it's really, to me personally, is very disturbing. Because I have this feeling that we run, and we are somehow, how can I say, pushed to run from all the environment around us without really understanding where and even why. So, in the last years, there are some studies saying that people in the cities walk at least 10% faster. Why? What need is there? We have this strange idea that the faster we go, the better it is. Sometimes I go there, I buy something online, and the day after, in the morning, it's there. It's even too much. You don't even have the time to wait for that. Then when you need to wait for 2 days and it's too long and it's never coming, and we have the idea that we will get to, okay, that they will take things to your house with the drone, and in a few minutes the thing will be there. But to get things quickly, it's not the problem. It's problem is living in this idea that the faster we do things, the better it is. So it's like as if someone never has time, and you always have to do things quickly. But I always remember the scene of this documentary where there will be this very nice woman, quite old already, that during the interview she was saying, you know, where I live, in the middle of a village in the mountains of Himalaya, you know, things are slow here. When you need water, you get down from the village, you go to the river, it takes time. When you want to cook or you want to heat the house, You need to collect wood, you need to make the fire. You want to talk with someone, you get down from the mountain, you get up on the other mountain to the other village and you go talk with the other person. One thing I really can't understand. When I go and visit my sister that she lives in the city of Le, you want water, you turn something and water comes out immediately. You want to cook and you turn or something and fire comes out. You want to talk with someone, you spin or you turn something and you talk with the other person with the phone. Everything is so fast, but when she comes to visit me, I have all the time in the world to talk with her, to be with her. And when I go visit her in the city, she never has time for me.
È così.
It's like that. We always have less and less time. I had this feeling the other day, quite funny, because I came here last Wednesday and I did an interview at the radio, and when I got at the radio everyone was running, not physically, but there was like an internal speed in everyone. It really seemed like the the, the one that comes from the village in the mountains to the city, and wait a minute, I need to kind of how beautiful, I said to myself, to be able to have slower times. All of this to get to the fact that when we look in front of us to a year that is ending and another one that is coming, and we try to schedule the next year, but we shouldn't do it so much from what we've done last year, but from what we have become and to what we want to become in the next year. If I take myself at the end of 2023 and beginning of 2024, have I got better or worse? Do I have more patience or less patience? Do I have more anger or less anger? More love? Am I more centered on myself, or am I able to see more the other? Do I live life with more joy or with less joy? The problems make me lose the balance as I did before, or have I got better or worse? Maybe on some things I got better, other things I got worse. And so on this, one sets a goal for himself. Okay, the next year that comes, 2025, I have many days, 365 days. It's many days if we live them fully. In order to train myself with more awareness, I want to get to the end of 2025 to be more aware, or to be more kind, to be more lovely, more patient, less dissatisfied. But I set a goal to myself, an internal goal, and not necessarily just of what I have to do, because otherwise we spend our lives in doing things. We are like machines that we have to do, when actually what is important is not what we do, but who we become. Because the basic goal for me, like first level, like life goal level 1, which is not little, but first level is, okay, to die as a better person as I was born. It's not easy. This means that as I live life, I must be careful to not go and nourish bad habits, but to nourish good habits. But to set these goals for ourselves, and to understand that in our life there is like a part that is like the surface. It's like looking at the ocean. You have what is on the surface, which is what we do, the experiences that we live, the external experiences, the things that we need to do, the going, the job, the external experiences, all that. It's the doing, it's on the surface. And then there is a deeper part that is below the surface, that is how internally we live what we do. And that is the most important thing, because the way I live, what I do, is what shapes who I become. And also the awareness of that already helps us a lot during life. And so, because usually we are very much taken with our daily life, with the job, with the things to do, and so on. And culturally, we have created this space at the end of the year in order to be able to have a bit more space. We have some days where we don't work. We have we should make use of this, among other things, also to say, okay, what has happened, who have I become, where do I want to go, in order to give that direction, because those moments of pause are fundamental to review our direction, to understand where have we gone, where do we want to go. So it's not only celebrating and revisiting things that didn't go, but also to kind of give evaluation
per fare una valutazione di come è andato.
of how the year went. Now we give stars for everything. So how many stars do we give to our emotional part, to our affections, to our patience, to our own qualities? How did it go? To allow ourselves this, because it's really fundamental to revisit this, because the reviewing makes us able to kind of redirect. Otherwise we are always living in the inertia, one thing after the other, we need to do this and then the other, and at the end, in this inertia, we lose the direction, where the awareness, it's as if the reins will not be in our hands anymore. We're going where the wind is blowing. And our life, at the end, is consumed by daily things, the things that we need to do. And so, really, I repeat again, let's take this space of time and let's allow ourselves in this time of the year, as the year is ending and a new one is starting, to dream. Let's allow us to dream, ourselves to dream. Who do I want to be at the end of 2025? How beautiful would it be if I, by the end of next year, didn't have much anxiety? Or how beautiful would it be if I could sleep better, or if I had a better relationship with people around me? How beautiful would it be if I didn't have much fear, or if I would get less angry? Let's see what's important for us, and to flirt with this idea a bit, and to imagine how beautiful. And when one allows himself to imagine something, that allows to generate a desire. I want that, and that can become passion, and that is one of the keys in order to make it reality. If we don't desire something, if we don't have passion, it becomes difficult, and we can't really desire something that we can't dream. And so, really, to ask ourselves the question, who do I want to be, what do I want to become? Starting from the more profound things. Also, some superficial things can be fine, but we don't have much controls on those. But from the inside out, what do I want to be? And let's try, when we do this, to make a list also, and to write. And in this list of who do I want to be, to not put like labels. In the sense, it's not like I want to be a person, a good person, happy person, or whatever. I go and put some specific things, like, I want to have a more coherent vision. I don't want to be attached to impermanent things as permanent things. I want in the upcoming year, I really care to be able to um, catch opportunities as they present themselves. I want to not be so scared to get out of my comfort zone. I want to be able to relate better with people around me and to have the courage to look at them in the eyes and to have the courage to be what I am. I'm inventing. But really, what is important for me, also getting into the details and to write them, like a letter of desire. I don't know if you ever written a letter to Santa Claus or yes, right? Let's write the letter. What do we want? But the address is our own. It's addressed to ourselves, but what do I want? Because writing it allows ourselves to verbalize, to put clarity, and that changes a lot. And it's interesting to see that when we put it there and we desire it, that automatically creates a force that makes it possible to become reality. But if we don't allow ourselves that important moment of imagining it to dream it, then it will never happen. And let's also remember that the process to obtain it will be difficult, yes? But here I'm asking you a question. Has this year 2024 been difficult? Was there some difficulty? 2023? 22? 21? 20? 20, even more. Like for me, 2020, yeah, some things very difficult, but the fact that I didn't travel was so nice. After many years, I had an opportunity to do that, and so every year has some challenges. But if every year up to now have been difficult somehow, how is 2025 going to be? The forecast of the year, yes, there will be some challenges. There will be good things, there will be bad things, joyous moments, sad moments. This is life. All of this to say that we shouldn't be afraid of challenges, because they are going to be there anyway. But the problem is to... Because as we wake up in the morning, we consume our own energy, whether we stay home just doing nothing or working. And I realized this once that I was in China and I was with my mother because she was doing a surgery. She had a tumor at the thyroid, and she decided to do the surgery in Pekino. And it went very well, but we stayed there for like a month, and I was with her. And it was the first time after, I don't know, 20 years that I had like a week as we were waiting, because first we had like to go to the hospital, and as we were waiting for some results, there was like a week in between the surgery, and in that week we had nothing to do, and it was something that happened after so many years that I didn't have anything scheduled and I didn't have anything planned, and the day was just going by, and I realized of something that I never realized before. When you wake up in the morning and you have to do many things, you get to the end of the day that you are tired. When you wake up in the morning and you don't do anything the whole day, and you get to the evening, then you are tired. And then it's not true. Today it was a tiring day. No, you get tired because being awake consumes energy. Every thought consumes energy. Our brain, I remember we say this, that the brain is like the physical electrical energy for the brain. The more we think, the more we consume energy. that's why thinking a lot, it's tiring when there is a lot of internal dialogue, because we consume a lot of energy with that. And similarly to this, in life, we need to toil because there are our shadows, there are demons to face, and our body-mind system presents these challenges to us. So the problem are not the challenges, but the importance of facing these challenges for something that eventually is good for us.
Affrontare le nostre ombre, guardarci negli occhi, riconoscere le nostre
Because facing our own shadows, our own difficulties, and everything, is that a struggle? Yes, a lot. But having to live with that bad habit, is it difficult? Yes, also. One is a struggle and makes us feel better, the other one makes us feel worse, so we should struggle for something that is good for us eventually. So this to say, let's try and not be afraid of challenges. This is my own way of thinking, that the certainty of the uncertainty brings relaxation. If I had the chance, the choice, whether to struggle or not to struggle, then yes, I would choose not to struggle. But when there is to struggle anyway, then one relaxes in that and then chooses what is better. I don't know if this is clear. And so, when we set ourselves this goal, let's try to set a coherent goal with the real resources, but at the same time that it's also brave. Coherent because it starts from where I am and with the resources that I have, but also brave because I allow myself to dream and to want the impossible. And this is something that I learned with Lama Gangchen. When we believe that the impossible becomes possible, the impossible becomes possible. Because often the limits are set by ourselves. And so when we go towards the impossible, maybe we get halfway and then we see maybe another beautiful path that we never saw before. And so when I think about the temple in Albagnano even more, the things that seemed completely impossible, completely out of reach, okay, we allow ourselves to dream, let's go in that direction. And by doing that, allow things to manifest conditions, and then, for example, the temple in Albagnano, when it was finished, and I looked back and I was like, okay, how did we do it? I don't know. For example, money. How did we do it? Every euro that is coming in and out, it was written, like from who and whatever. There is perfect contability. But if you would ask me before, if I had believed that we were able to do all of that, was there like a well thought business plan with a fundraising? No. One just started with trust, believing that that was possible, and I really personally thought about it. I allowed the construction to start. Okay, when we have the money for the outside, like the wall and the roof, okay, I do the wall and the roof, and then we will see. Maybe as we go by, we will do room by room, because that was the situation that we had. And actually things worked somehow, but the starting point was possible because we really believed at it. And I see people doing incredible things. I don't know, a story comes to my mind that really hit me. It was like of Joseph Pilates, this man that created the system of exercise known as Pilates. His father had a gym, and he, when I was a kid, was very weak, was very skinny, always with a fever, inflammation. He was never well, but he had a fixation that he wanted to become an athlete, because in the gym of his father there were many Olympic athletes, and he really wanted to do that, and he would sit there to do the exercise, and everybody would treat him, yes, okay, we make you play, but you will never be able with your physical condition to become an athlete. But he, even with the fever, would stay there more hours than the other, and would train himself more hours than the others, and would stay there. And at the end, he developed a system to heal himself, and he had a perfect body until the end of his life. And whoever had seen him when he was a kid, he would have thought, okay, he would have never managed. And that the fact that he actually dreamed, okay, I can do it, it's possible, then. And unfortunately, we live in a time where more and more we allow ourselves less to not dream. It almost seems stupid to dream. And once I saw a documentary that was speaking about many philosophers that was talking about Nietzsche in a certain part, and there was a passage talking about Nietzsche, and he was saying in modern times that there are the people that will be called the last men. And he described the last men as people that will look at the stars and they would say how beautiful, but they wouldn't even allow themselves to desire to get to the stars because the path would be too difficult. And so I rather stay in my own house, comfortable, rather than doing a path to get to the stars, to something special. And so a time where we create a comfort zone and we don't want to get out of it. We don't allow ourselves to dream even something that goes beyond that. We are there a bit. And so I invite you to really allow yourselves, what do I want for the next year? What do I want in this life? For myself, in my life, for the people around me. And this dreaming, the more we do it and we stay there and imagine it, the more we develop desire for that. But for that, we need to imagine ourselves in that place. We need to imagine ourselves in that situation, in that state. How beautiful to live in the world without being in a hurry. How beautiful to be able to sleep well and to wake up with energy. How beautiful to be able to have a good relationship with everyone and to relate with their qualities instead of always being unsatisfied and arguing with others. That would be really beautiful. And one imagines himself there. It's like the image of which I talked about many times of the genius of the lamp, where let's imagine, okay, at a certain point we meet the genius, but it's like the Tibetan lamp, it's not the Arabic lamp, because the Aladdin genius gives you 3 wishes, you know. So, no, Tibetan genius gives you 1 wish, and you have 1 wish and you have 2 choices, A or B. This doesn't exist in Tibetan culture, I'm making it up. So there are 2 possibilities. You get to the genius and it comes out, okay, you have two possibilities. The first possibility is imagine everything that you want materially. You want to change your body? Boom, like that. You want more money? How much money do you want? You want the bank? You can have it. What do you want? The house? How many houses? Even people. How do you want people around you? You imagine all the world around you. How would you want that? I can give that to you. You can change idea after that. Once given, it's that. Let's try to imagine a bit what would be the things that, according to us, would be really nice if they would be there. Can we dream a bit? My mother once asked me, we were doing like psychology exercise, if you had to choose like a number of amount of money that you could have to be satisfied, I said at least 5 billion. Once you have them, you need to do a lot of things. Then they're not enough. Depends what you want to do. For me, what I have is enough. If I need to think of doing a lot, then a lot comes out. But the question is, are we able to dream a bit and to imagine things like the house, the body, the people around us, how we want things? And the genius comes to us and he said, okay, look, I can give all of this to you, but there is a but. Inside of you, you stay how you are. Internally, you just stay like that. You know, the anger that you sometimes get, that will stay. You know, the sadness that it's there, that will stay also, and so on. And then the genius asks, B, possibility, second possibility, the body stays like that, the bank account stays like that, job is what you have, the people are the same, the world around you just stays as it is, you can't do anything. But I can give you patience, satisfaction, balance. I can take away some of the traumas, the sadness, the rancor, fear. You describe what you want internally, and I give that to you. What do you want among the two? Often the question is a bit of the two. Isn't there like a middle way, like Madhyamika? The truth is that if we want a bit of one and the other, is that we don't really trust the second. And the question that I ask myself, me in my life, for which of the two dreams am I working, the first or the second? That's a question that we ask ourselves, and the answer doesn't need to come from an idealized point of view. The Buddhists are going to say, no, for me the most important thing is developing bodhicitta, love, altruism, the correct view of reality. Then in daily life, where does energy go? The bodhicitta comes to the mind sometimes, once in a while, maybe, this feeling of altruistic mind. So really, where do I put energy in my life? So when we make the plan for the next year, which one of the two do I want? Where do I want to go? And the fact of having an internal plan doesn't take away the fact that we try to make the job better, to have good relationships, to take care of material things well. I'm not saying that this should just be left aside, but to have a goal in life that transcends this. And there is one last example, that is, let's imagine something, let's make an exercise to help in this direction. Let's imagine things that according to us are not well in our own life. Let's make a mountain in front of us with all the things that we don't like. We put there the person that is talking to us in a way that we don't like, that person that we don't like, the problems at work, the husband, the wife, whatever. You put there all the things that we don't like. We make all of them in front of us. Can we imagine them? It takes some time to put everything there, but partly can we put some stuff there? Now we are in front of all of this mountain of things, and then we remove from our own side dissatisfaction. We remove from our own side the rancor. We remove the anger. We remove selfishness. What happens with the mountain? It collapses. And here is the key. The key is not eliminating the mountain. It's to remove what keeps it up. So when we manage to see that the problem is not the way, the world in which we live, but the way we relate with it. And with this, I don't want to say that, the war is nothing, it's how you relate with the war. Obviously, no one here is in an extreme situation of survival when there are bombs on our heads or when they come to kill you with guns. We're not in this kind of situations, because when you're in having to fight for survival, that's another thing, that's another level. But when survival is assured, it's given for granted, the priority is not what we do, but how we live it, and which is also what determines our choices, our actions, and also then what we do. All of this to get to the remembering ourselves. Okay, when we get to the end of the year, we revisit what we have done and we project to where we want to go. That letter that we have to write, nobody should read it. We should remain for ourselves. We shouldn't show that to anyone. We write it, we keep it there, possibly also with paper and pen, not on the phone. Slowly we write. Sometimes maybe we change our mind, we write back. But let's try to not allow this cycle to end in an unaware way and to start another one when we're not being aware of that. Let's take the chance to live this process, which makes difference. I particularly wanted to thank you for this year. This is the last day of the year of the oncoming year in Milan. I chose to do it on Monday because on Thursday you have to be in the airport very early, so it's very difficult. It's a bit tiring, to get home at midnight, then I leave at 4 in the morning, and then I have to do other trips. I go visit Rinpoche in America, and I go back on the 27th. And then I will be in Abagnano for the end of the year, and then as the course in Abagnano ends, I will leave for Brazil, then I will be back at the 12th of February. And the idea up to now is to not travel, to not do long trips, at least until May. That's what I put in the calendar. And this to say thank you for this year, because for me, all the experiences, of all the experiences that I live in the year, one of the most important experiences is being together. And I say this because these are times where we allow ourselves these couple of hours to reflect together on things that are important for us and that transcend our daily life, but that are connected with our daily life. Me, for example, I took a very conscious choice of not taking lessons on Buddhism. Okay, I really like it if we get into Buddhist philosophy and we get into the details, we spend the life here just talking. But I got to a point where I say to myself, but what's the point of that? It's really useful if you do a long journey, but what do we really need? We need to take to our daily life meaningful things that we usually forget about. And so this time always allow me to be able to make these kind of reflections together. And also because being together, look at each other in the eyes and to share as a common space and to share a moment of reflection are things that are really important for each one of us, and it has a huge power. So really thank you of this opportunity for me. Oh, Lama, no, we thank you also, but one thing doesn't take away the other. So to thank means to give value to something that I believe that it's important, and so I wanted to say this and to ask to everyone to continue on the path with great sincerity, because no one here is here to be Buddhist, no one here is here to be part of something that socially forces us to do something or something else. We are not in this. We are here because we want to try to live our own lives at our best for ourselves and for the others. And so sincerity is fundamental.
Questa è una delle cose che chiedo a tutti di ricordare.
And so this is something that I ask everyone to remember. And as we always say, let's try to put that in practice the best way we can, because also life goes by very fast. So let's try to live it at our own best. Now let's make the final dedications.
Jetsu lame kotsera namkar chinle chokchur gepada losan tempe drume sasumki drove munsela taktu ne gyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lamadang dralme cheki pela longche ching sadan lamge yente rabzone Dorje change kopa nyurtobe sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shin ninsen takto delekpe kuncho sumki chingilo kuncho sumki ngodrubutsol kuncho sumki trashisho all'alba o al tramonto
At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and to sprinkle the paths of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Thank you everyone, have a good year, new year, because we won't see each other, but we see each other soon. And I forgot, also Merry Christmas to everyone.